You want your children to be educated and smart when they decide to engage in sexual acts, right? Well, if kids don't have a class on sexual education or the parents aren't teaching them the right way, they won't know what's right and what's wrong. My name's Rachel Morrison, and I'm going to tell you why I think sexual education should be mandatory throughout middle school and high school. In 2015, 41% of high school students were reported having sexual intercourse, according to the website recap.com. There was a few things the 1990s just did a little bit better, including getting the word out about the dangers of unprotected sex, according to healthland.time.com. If you look at this chart, it says most new cases of sexually transmitted infections occur in youth and young adults. The first highest percentage is in your early 20s, and the second highest percentage is in your late teenage years. If sexual education was a mandatory class throughout middle school and high school, it's most likely that these teenage percentages would lower. This is a comic, and it says, "I'll never allow my daughter to take a sex education class." And then on the right, it's her daughter saying the same thing. This is basically showing that just because a parent doesn't want their kids to be taught about sex doesn't mean that they don't know about it. It means that they won't be safe about it because they don't know what to do. How do you expect your kids to use protection if they don't learn? And then a lot of parents don't like to teach their kids because they think it's going to make them promiscuous. But according to About Kids Health, it's actual sex education does not lead to promiscuity. And the problem with kids not being educated is that they may not be safe when they engage in sexual acts because they don't know any better. And that's honestly not fair. I would just rather my kids be educated the right way, go through that awkward talk with your teacher or your parent, than have to go through teen pregnancy or having a consequence of an STD. A recent study released by the Sex Information and Education Council of Canada found that nearly 50% of sexually active college students aren't using condoms. This is awful. Not using condoms is not using protection. Therefore, you're not protecting anything. You're not protecting yourself from getting pregnant or from getting an STD. And if this was taught in a class and these kids realize like the consequences of unprotected sex, and if something bad could happen to you, then most likely they would start using condoms every time. There are a couple opposing views, and the most common one is that parents want to teach their children themselves, but also parents don't tell the entire truth, and kids won't feel as comfortable talking to their parents about sex. I don't know about you, but I feel very uncomfortable if my parents talk to me about that. Like, I would rather hear it from a teacher just because you could sit and listen quietly. So that's just my personal feeling. But this picture is of a little boy, and he just doesn't want to listen. So some kids are like me, and they don't want to hear it from their parents. So I think it's a good thing if parents teach their kids, absolutely, but I think they need to tell the entire truth and tell them the correct information. The second opposing view is that people think that if kids learn about it, they'll start having sex. Well, there comes a timing in a kid's life that if they find out about sex, and even if they don't find out about sex, they're going to know sooner or later. The third opposing view is that some parents want to keep it from their kids as long as possible. But actually, the number of sexual references that a kid will see on TV a year is 15,000. That means if your kid watches TV, which in today's society is 100% yes, they'll watch TV, then they're going to find out what sex is that way. They're going to find out somehow. So why not just have a class through high school that teaches them the right way and when timing is right and all of that. For my solution is I want parents to educate their kids or go to the school that their kid's going to and ask them for a class in middle school and high school about sexual education. The worst thing that could go wrong is that they say no. From the results of these is that I think kids will be a lot more smarter about their sexual engagements And you could also contribute to these national and global organizations. This is Advocates for Youth, and this is the Gay Straight Alliance, and this will help kids learn more about it. And also, a little background on it is 14 programs demonstrated a statistically significant delay in timing of first sex, and 13 programs showed statistically significant declines in teen pregnancy, both from this organization, Advocates for Youth. So if you contribute to that, it'll help. Or go into your children's classes or children's schools and see if they could put a class in there to help teach your kids about sexual education. Or as a parent, teach them yourself, because it's really important and they really need it. So thank you for listening to my speech, and I hope I told you why kids should be in a sexual education class throughout middle school and high school. Thank you.